How do you do, Exiles? This is going to be the second League Star build for 3.23 Affliction, and it is Crackling Lance Elementalist. We are Golem stacking. This was the original build. Arc was made after the fact, and we just did a video on that yesterday. So if you're interested in that skill, you should go check out that video. I made this several leagues ago. A friend of mine who really wants to play, or really wanted to play Crackling Lance, asked me to make him a build. This is what I came up with, and it is to date the most fun I've ever had playing a self-cast skill. The Golem stacking is really, it just works really well with Crackling Lance, you know, with scaling crit, raw damage, and cast speed. Not to mention our defenses. It all just synergizes really well with this particular skill. And for anyone that's ever played Crackling Lance, cast speed is uber important. And our buffing our Golem effect really helps us to reach that threshold of this skill feeling really amazing to play with. The footage above, we just got some bot skills. The mapping footage, I ended up remaking the build this league to test it, and it's as good as it ever was. And this is actually getting a fairly significant buff this league, the actual base gem, with the quality being 10% more damage per intensity charge. And we have 4. So we're getting effectively 40% more damage. And we're already doing upwards of 30 million. So it's actually kind of insane. I've shocked Maven as high as 45%. I mean, it just chunks. It really does. This is an incredible build, and I'm very excited to share it with you guys. But before we get into the POB, you like this kind of content, you're liking my builds, do me a favor, like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Trying to hit 1,000 subs. Let's get on to the POB. Okay, so here we are at the POB, and if you notice, it is almost identical, quite literally identical to our Arc variant of Golem stacking, same ascendancy order, right? You know, we go Mastermind of Discord into Heart of Destruction, Leauge of the Primordial, and then Elemancer as our Uber lab. And then here's our in-game tree. Anoint, Heart of Thunder. The gear, extremely basic. Obviously, Anima Stone's going by the wayside. And I'll have this whole POB fully updated for when the launch happens. You know, we'll have, everything nice and tidied up. Primordial Chain, our very basic 1 Chaos Staff, super cheap. This thing will carry you for a long time. And everything else is just basic res and life. Stygian Vise, this could even be a leather belt, to be honest. And the other thing I splurge on early game is an Aziri's Promise. And yeah, that's really it. 85% crit with Galvanic Field. I mean, we're looking at 2.7. That's Shaper, Guardian Pinnacle DPS. About 3.6. Just regular, normal, run-of-the-mill DPS. We are not running Righteous Fire in our League Start because we don't quite have enough regen, right? Because we're not scaling our Golems quite yet, which is also part of the reason why our effective hit pool is so low. Now, I League started this personally, the league that I came up with the build. I didn't really have any issues dying. I mean, Crackling Lance pretty much disintegrates anything that it touches. And I found that I didn't really have any issues. Unless I was just, being kind of stupid or, not, doing mechanics and things like that. I would recommend that you guys dodge stuff, obviously. But I'm not the greatest PoE player to ever exist. And it felt fine for me, which is the unfortunate downside of this build is our defenses are tied to our golems. And until we start buffing our golem effects, we just really don't have the defense. And that is the single downfall that this build has, and I wish it didn't have it. But If you can get to that point, the build is extraordinarily satisfying. And it really doesn't take much to get there, to be honest. As far as our skills are concerned, Arcanist Brand, Wave of Conviction, Single Curse. You can use Lightning Warp or Flame Dash, whatever suits your fancy. I wanted to try something different. Lightning Warp is kind of fun, but it's up to you. This is fully interchangeable. Like the Arc variant, Galvanic Field, Power Charge on crit, Arcane Surge, increased crit damage. You could drop increased crit damage for something else if you really wanted to. But it is kind of nice having that little bit of extra damage. Crackling Lance, we have Spell Echo. Obviously, we have Intensity, Consecrated Effect, critical damage. And because we're casting so fast and it does cost quite a bit of mana, I opted to run Life Tap since we have so much regen, even with Righteous Fire. I felt Life Tap was the obvious choice to get the build up and running. And then we have Zealotry, Purity of Elements, and Vitality. If you wanted early game defense, you could go ahead and drop Zealotry in lieu of Determination, and that would up your effective hit pool considerably. I chose not to do that. I just ran Zealotry and just had fun with it. And then here's all our golems. You can run this as a 5-link. You don't have to 6-link this. However, obviously the Crackling Lance does need to be 6-link. And then, we already took a look at the items. Very basic stuff. I mean, extremely basic stuff. And that is the league start notes right here. If you have any questions, please feel free to put something down in the comments. And this build will 100% get you started. I was extremely successful on my league start when I did this build. And honestly, it worked out super well. Now, here is our in-game POB, right? Almost, like I said, almost identical to our arc setup, save for a few little tiny things here and there, namely our caster mastery that gives us +1 to intensity. This allows us to have +4 to intensity, which gives us 40% more damage because of the new quality for Crackling Lance. And it's just going to be the base quality. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for any of the other variants. I saw them dropped today. And the other two transfiguration don't really hold up to what I want out of this build. So I would recommend just the base Crackling Lance. And a couple of changes. We are running an Empower to boost the level just a little bit more. And then we have Galvanic Field, Power Charge on crit, Arcane Surge, and then we have our Righteous Fire. We are positive almost 600 health regen, which is super nice. We have our Dual Curse, Conductivity, and Assassin's Mark with Flame Dash. Our Zealotry, Purity of Elements, Vitality, and Enlighten. And then we have all of our Golem. Now, this is 39 mil, right? Just base. And then we have about almost 29 million. Right? And if you're hitting 45% shocks like I do on Maven, I mean, we're looking at an incredible amount of DPS for bossing. Even if you're shocking at 25, it's still a very incredible amount. And so the potential for bossing in this build is pretty impressive. Now, obviously, our physical damage reduction leaves a lot to be desired. But when I did this build, when I league started it, I wasn't really doing a ton of mapping. I was really focused on bossing. And when you get up into this level of DPS, I mean, everything melts. Like nothing really has a chance to kill you per se. Though you do die sometimes. I will be honest, you will die. It's just the nature of how I designed this build. The arc variant is considerably more tanky, absolutely, but considerably less potential as a bosser. Now, you saw the Maven footage, saw the other bossing footage. I built this POB and this character with that in mind. Uh, I'm not hard juicing maps. I really wanted to just kind of focus on bossing. And I don't really need a ton of defense for that. And if you're worried about getting through the campaign and the maps, I mean, all I can say is I didn't really have much of an issue. Sure, I died, but you know, I wasn't sitting there frustrated. You know, as far as our items go, same thing, except we run a bottle of faith. Our megalomaniacs. It's pretty rare that you'll get one with three notables that are usable, so I usually just go for two. We have a Watcher's Eye and then an Anima Stone that is obviously going to go away. By the time League starts on Friday, I will figure out a replacement for this little doohickey, and we'll go from there. Our Cluster Jewel, super duper easy to find and or craft. And just really basic gear, just trying to stack as much resistance as possible. At least try to get positive chaos res. And yeah, you just kind of blow and go. So that is the build. This is what it looks like. I'm very excited. I've pushed this pretty much every league almost for people to use. And I mean, it's gotten pretty good reception. I'll be playing the Arc variant, which I'll have linked at the end of this video. And that's it. That's the build. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week. I'm going to try and do another video on my currency making strats for this league in the coming days before Friday. And yeah, I will see you guys on league launch. Be good. Take care of yourselves.